Before we start, I would like to say that I'm sorry for the misunderstanding in the previous blog. Kate is such a common name, especially where I come from. So again, I'm truly sorry for causing these misunderstandings. Anyway, you, of course, will remember about David and our call. Well, since then, I haven't seen or heard from him, and I'm starting to worry quite a bit, honestly. He has never missed a day of work, and when I asked around, no one has either heard from him or seen from him. When we get sick, we usually call the center to inform of our absence, so it's weird. Especially from him, since he takes his job very seriously. And yes, before you ask, I tried texting him, but I got no response. Still, I hope he's alright, and that nothing too bad happened. Back to the topic of the park. Today I talked with one of my dearest friends, Maryanne. She doesn't work as a ranger, but she has seen and experienced some strange stuff here. So I asked her if I could add some of her stories too. I'm glad she granted me the permission. To make everything easier, my memory is not the best. I recorded her testimonies while we were walking, so that I would be able to write everything down. It's not that I don't like coming here, but at the same time, I prefer to avoid making this a habit. You know, there are things that you'll never be able to get off your mind, and it's not healthy to constantly think about them. It's easier to forget, as they say. Well, I came here one day to jog a bit, and as I always do, I was wearing my headphones to make the working out more pleasant. So, I couldn't hear a thing. I like blasting the music as loud as possible. But, at one point, I don't know why, but I started feeling like someone was watching me, and so I took them off. But, not seeing anyone around, I put them back on. I continued on my way, looking back from time to time, just to assure myself that no one was stalking me. But, then, I saw something. In between the trees. It was the silhouette of a deer, but it didn't seem like a normal deer. It was very pale, and it seemed too tall. I didn't want to get closer, so I ran, speeding out of there. I still don't know for sure what I saw that day, but I can tell you, it didn't look like a normal deer. This is the end of her first story. I'll share one more, even though the next one is short. I had to choose between other ones, but I feel like these were the most interesting because we don't have deer as local fauna here, and because the next one is about a topic we'll cover probably later on with this update. You know, the small lake under the waterfall, right? Well, I decided to go there one day because I wanted to take some pictures to add to my photographic album, and so I did. And when I got there, I took some cool pictures, and then I went home. I usually edit the pictures and add more light and fix stuff, and when it came to increase the brightness, I saw something in the water. There were 2 black spots that seemed like eyes. I looked at it over and over again, but I couldn't think of anything else. They were definitely eyes, cruel and soulless. A horrible sense of uncomfortableness rose up in my spine, so I decided it was better to delete them. It's not hard to imagine that I never went back to take pictures at that park. This is why we have a rule for the lake too. Rule 10. There's a small lake under the waterfall. Avoid bathing there or getting too near the water. We don't know what's under the surface, but we prefer to be careful because apparently someone almost lost their leg there. A guy that was around 19 years old came here with a group of friends, but you know how kids are today. They probably challenged each other at doing something stupid or to go against the rules. This is when the guy got near to the lake. He got grabbed by something and screamed in pain, and only with their help was he able to not be dragged under the water. When he pulled up his leg, he almost fainted. It was badly injured, and you could see the flesh torn. It was like something had bitten him. I'm pretty sure he considered himself lucky that day, because otherwise, he would have definitely been the lunch of whatever lives in the depths of that place. Talking about stuff we still don't know much about, there is a certain trail that we absolutely had to block because of how dangerous it is to walk there. We call this place Rockfall Danger. So, it is truly not a problem. But now, before that, it was one of the most risky parts of the park for the visitors. People would report not knowing anymore where they are going, and would seemingly be lost. They wouldn't know what they were doing. Some would even claim feeling like they were being guided towards another path that would usually end up with a cliff. We obviously have a rule for that too, just to remind everyone that it is not a good idea going there. 11. Do not take path north 23 for any reason. If you happen to be nearby, walk away as fast as possible. So you see, it's never safe enough. We try our best. Somehow, someone always seemingly gets hurt. Someone always dies or goes missing. It's how it's always been and how it will always be, even if we do not like it. I'm tired of worrying so much, to be honest. I'm tired. But what should I do? Give up helping people? It's not easy. You see, you guys are the only ones who I can talk to about this. Because my parents and my real-life friends simply wouldn't understand. Or maybe they just don't want to. Maybe they don't want to imagine the possibility of unnatural things existing in our very world. And maybe that's fine. Maybe I'm okay with that. I guess I get it. Life is already hard enough, so obviously there's no need to drag them into more stuff. Getting back into our conversation once again, I would like to share with you something I saw with my own eyes during a search and rescue operation. A woman disappeared during lunchtime. The husband said that she had went to the toilet, but after a while, he started worrying because she hadn't come back yet, and when he went checking with their kids, she wasn't there. After that, he proceeded calling us because he had nowhere to look, and he had to look after his daughters. He couldn't just go searching with them. We found her the day after, her corpse scattered between some bushes and missing both arms. The eyes open in a state of shock, probably because of what she saw before dying. I said scattered because there were pieces of her flesh all around, a bloody mess. No one vomited because you need a strong stomach for this job position, so we get used to it. However, when it came to tell the man we didn't find anything, it broke my heart because I saw him almost crying, which made me kind of uncomfortable because, well, you must admit, you would never imagine seeing a grown man crying. God only knows what he could have been thinking back then. Maybe he thought his wife ran away, or maybe she was abducted or something. God knows what he was thinking. What I do know, though, is that this is cruel. It's cruel to lie to those poor people about their relatives or friends. But for some reason, to the higher ranks in the police, lying about deaths, even if they are terrible, seems better than leaving people tormenting and doubting themselves and obsessing over what they could or could not have done. I don't get it. Sometimes it's better. It's a harsh truth more than a lie. Well, this was not even the first time someone died in that way here, though. There were other similar deaths before and after. We still don't know what kind of special visitor could have done it, even though a reddish feminine creature without arms has been sometimes spotted by some rangers. Usually they spot this unusual visitor around lunchtime. I believe you know what I mean, but that's just a theory. We don't even have a rule for that because of how unsure we are about that situation. To stay in the topic of special visitors, I think you might be interested in hearing the next rule we have. 12. Every day, in the afternoon, there's an old woman sitting on a bench that feeds the birds. Do not sit with her or talk to her. If she asks you a question, pretend you have to make a call or you are listening to music. And most importantly, do not scare the birds away. The special visitor looks like a harmless woman, but is not. An ex-park ranger was taken by curiosity and decided to try talking to her. Very, very bad move. The thing opened its mouth and a huge tongue came out from it, revealing very long and sharp teeth. How he survived? Another colleague that was patrolling nearby was courageous enough to start throwing things at this, whatever this thing was. He got a heavy rock, and eventually it made it run away. It ran into the woodland, apparently, never to be seen again. Needless to say, that is how the first man became an ex-ranger. I told you, you must have guts to work here, but more than anything, brain. He was just lucky. About the birds as well. They are normal birds, but it seems like they are somehow controlled by that creature. A little bully once tried scaring them away, and the creature decided to make them chase after him. So yeah, I guess that's how we know it. Also, I got some news in regards to search and rescue operations. We find people usually dead, and we either find them in a few hours or days or sometimes even a few weeks. The park is not so big, such as other parks, but it's still big enough to cause troubles during those operations. When we don't find them dead, they're often very badly hurt or in a state of shock and visible confusion, while in the opposite case, deaths never seem incidental. Someone asked me why I chose my job, and again, the main reason is that I want to save people. I would have liked some other security jobs too, maybe like a bodyguard, but I'm just too tiny and I'm not strong enough anymore due to medical conditions. So I opted for a park ranger. I used to like nature, but now it just makes me uncomfortable. Because of the things that I now know are lurking out there, I think that's all I'm going to share for today. I'll ask around for more stories to tell you, and try carrying with me, as someone suggested, some salt. I heard evil beings don't like it, and you're probably right. It could work. So thank you for comprehending, and sorry again for any misunderstandings. Stay safe. I need to give a sense to things that occurred yesterday. I don't know how to feel right now. David's sister went to his apartment just to check in on him, and she found him, dead. He was on the floor, eyes wide open in shock and blood splattered everywhere. The point is, from what I heard, that he had bled to death for no apparent reason. There were no cuts, nothing, and that his expression was of pure fear, like he had saw something so terrifying that made him fall onto the ground. David didn't have any health issues, so if you recall my past post, well, you probably don't know what it means. You probably know who, or should I say what, did this to him. In fact, I've met it, as if nothing more could go wrong. I was doing my job, patrolling another isolated trail and trying to get over David's death, when suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder. So naturally, I turned in concern, only to meet face to face with the man in the tan jacket. I couldn't see obviously under his scarf, but I swear that somehow I knew he was smiling. I know I said I wouldn't go patrolling alone anymore, but sometimes we need time alone. Sometimes we are just too tired or nervous to have anyone around, so they'll allow it still. They give us walkie-talkies though. Again, we are human, so it can happen that we go alone, even though it is not suggested. It's not that things are less dangerous when in couples though, because bad stuff can happen anyway. It simply kinda helps. I mean, groups are good, because it is very rare that stuff happens in those cases yet. But it's not impossible. I'm sorry, my dear. I didn't mean to frighten you. Have we met before? You do look familiar, he said in a surprisingly cheerful and warm voice. I expected it to be creepy, but it wasn't. Yet, I had the feeling that there was something odd. You know, when something just doesn't feel right. He then took my hand and kissed it, like a gentleman would do. I stared at him blankly, not processing yet what was happening. One thing is hearing about the special visitors or spotting them. Another thing is having face-to-face encounters. Would you like to sit, perhaps? You walked quite a lot, I assume. He asked me, gesturing towards one of the brick walls. Yes, thank you, I answered, confused. What did he mean? I had never seen him. Unless... That evening, when David called me, I saw a yellowish glimpse outside the window. And I saw those often this past few days, but really didn't pay attention to it. I thought it was temporary, like caused by me just being very tired, but I guess I was wrong. I then looked at the spot and went sitting with him. Was he trying to mock me? I'm pretty sure he was, because he didn't think I would have come to this conclusion so quickly, but I said nothing. He asked for my name, and as you imagine, I lied. We then carried on a conversation about the beauty of nature, my studies, and such. But even though it didn't seem too bad talking with him, deep down, I knew something was very wrong. Maybe he was trying to make me let my guard down. Who knows? Luckily, I'm not that type of person you can trick easily, and I'm very good at reading people too. I believe he, or it, acts like psychopaths would do, creating a false image of kindness and reliability to gain your trust while preparing to stab you. I have no idea for how long we talked. It was probably roughly an hour or so, but when the time came for me to go, I was asked one last question. Before you go, dear, tell me, what is it you seek? What do you truly desire? I stared at his sunglasses. No, you couldn't make out any features of his face apart from the ears. And though I thought about it for a moment, I was pondering the possibilities. What I answered was, I don't know. And he just looked at me, like you would do if somebody said something weird, but it was the truth. I don't know what I want. I'm always confused, so there's no real answer to that. The man in the tan jacket let me go and waved at me. See you soon, dear. Next time, I'm sure you will. So that was my encounter with him, and I honestly believe it won't be the last. Now, let's just change the subject. I think you might like some of the stories some of my colleagues sent me by message, so that I could easily share them with you. The first story was submitted by Ashley. It happened a few years ago. Me and a team of colleagues were taking part in a search and rescue operation. 2 college students had apparently gone missing, so we had to check various places. But after a while, we ran out of options, so we had to go for the woodland. I don't know for how much time we had been walking, but at one point, it appeared in front of us like magic. A small wooden cabin. It didn't quite make any sense. Why would there be a cabin here, in the middle of a forest? We looked at each other. Should we go check? One of them asked in a nervous voice. We had already seen and experienced weird stuff in the park, so the idea of going inside really didn't spark our joy. I nodded along with some other rangers and started walking towards the shed. That poor guy decided to go first, and another one followed him behind while we waited outside for them. We waited only a few minutes, however, because they both bolted out panicking and screaming. The long woman with her big eye was looking at us from the ceiling. That said, they were both left traumatized for life, taken to a mental institute, because they continued babbling nonsense about the long woman. We never found the 2 teens. We made up a new rule, of course, but we couldn't destroy or close the cabin because every time we tried, it would disappear and reappear in another location. So, my suggestion is, if you find it, stay the hell away from it. That's the end of our first story that honestly still gives me chills, and here's the related rule. 13. If you find a wooden cabin, absolutely do not enter, and make sure to call the security immediately. Well, I believe there's no need for further explanations. While we are here, let's get to another rule, then to another story. 14. If you happen to see a blonde woman with a blue dress, do not look at her directly in the eyes, and please do not follow her. This story was sent to me by a guy we'll call Ed. I've seen so much crap here before, but this seriously made me question many times if I should quit my job. One day I was checking on one of the main trails when a woman came out of the bushes. She stood in front of me. She was gorgeous in her blue dress, blonde hair, slim, with pale skin and blue eyes. But those eyes, God, they were a deep blue, so deep and mesmerizing that I could get lost. However, she didn't say anything and simply offered me a hand. I didn't want to go with her, but I found myself walking in that direction. No matter how hard I tried to resist, my legs seemed to move on their own. I took her hand and she started leading me onto another trail, one that I had never taken before. I tried yelling, but my voice wouldn't come out, and the more we walked, the more I felt lost and cold. Where was I? Who was I? Those were the questions that kept running through my head. You know how I got out of this situation? My phone thankfully rang in that moment, just right when I almost got to the point of giving up. This somehow broke the trance, and I regained all of my consciousness and ran away from whatever that thing was, back to the main path. Sometimes, though, I still hear just in the back of my mind the echo of a female voice. As mentioned various times, I haven't encountered all of the special visitors, so in that case, I'll just be sharing the rules. I think anyways, that today I'll end here. This entry is a little shorter than others, and I do apologize. I just need some time to get over David's death and process what happened. I think now I know why David warned me. Curiosity killed the cat. Hi guys, welcome to a new update, and thank you so much for your kindness. I won't write much because my head hurts a lot. I hit it today while entering my car on my way to work. Plus, I'm feeling extremely depressed at the moment. Anyways, today I decided I'll share some stories from David in his memory. I truly hope you can enjoy them. I'm still amazed by all the positive response by my blogs. You probably already know that I took part in many search and rescue operations. So I think I will start from one of the events that haunted me the most during my whole career. I've also been working in other parks, but none of them was like this one. We were in big squash because apparently a kid had disappeared while he was walking on a trail with his family, composed by his older brother of 17 and their parents. When we arrived, we found the brother shaking and crying, and the mother was absolutely distraught. She was crying desperately that she was holding on to the child's hand the whole time, but when she turned towards him, at one point, he had just disappeared. One of us told her she probably got distracted, but what hit me is that she insisted until she managed to convince my boss in something. Her eyes told me it was true. I was assigned to a squad of 4 people, one of them being my old buddy Matt. I, being the oldest person, said I wanted to go ahead of the group, and so I did. The forest was, for some strange reason, quiet. There were no chirping of birds, no howling of the wind between the dead autumn leaves, nothing. We carefully continued walking, trying to see if we could find some traces or hear something that could possibly lead us to the kid, and it went on like this for what I think was a half an hour. But then, we heard it. A whistle. Clear and loud. It seemed to be coming from all directions. We looked at each other in possible visible confusion, because we couldn't make out the source of the sound. One of us spoke up, saying we couldn't stop, so we agreed and continued our search, even if we were scared. But the further we went, the louder the noise got, until we had to turn back eventually. It was simply impossible to work in this condition. There was nothing else we could do, but in the end, we found him. This boy was extremely lucky. One of the other squads found him near a clearing. The kid looked very confused, and it almost seemed like he didn't know where he was or where he was going. Some other colleagues asked him a few questions, and since curiosity always has the best out of me, I listened in disbelief. I was with Mom the entire time. Why did you take me away? So yeah, that wasn't the only time I witnessed stuff like that. Another case that I particularly remember was when me and my dear friend and colleague Matt were patrolling at one of the signal towers. Now, this is a position you get to occupy once in a while, because it's very easy to mess up. But I should have felt lucky, but I really didn't. The thought of being at such a height made me feel nervous. I know it sounds weird from someone like me, but everyone has their own phobias, and mine has always been heights. I accept it only because I didn't want to look like a little girl. You know, as a grown man, I would have felt very embarrassed otherwise. Our society puts us in a position that doesn't allow you to show too many feelings or to show your weakness. Me and Matt went upstairs, and I did my best to try not to look down. When we arrived, we decided to go checking on the north. It all seemed good at first. Eventually, he decided that I should go check the south and the east, and he would go and check more of the north and the west. We went back and forth on the balcony, but didn't see anything unusual going on, so after a few, I decided I would go pee. The toilets were downstairs, so I had to once again gather all my courage because I simply could not hold it anymore. When I was about to go do my business, I heard a noise that sounded like footsteps, so I quickly turned around, but no one was there. I looked up and I could still see Matt at the top of the tower, so it couldn't be him. And no, it wasn't just me being paranoid. I knew I heard footsteps. "Whoever is here, come out. It's not funny. Stop screwing around," I shouted. But without receiving any answer, I shrugged and went into the toilets. When I finished and got out, I saw Matt waving frantically at me and shouting my name, so I went upstairs as fast as I could, only to find him with his face pale as paper. "What is it? What happened?" I asked, worried. He looked at me straight in the eyes, an expression between fear and confusion, and then stammered some words out. Someone tried to push me down, but there was no one behind me when I turned around. I heard them go away, though." We checked inside the tower and all around, but didn't find anything suspicious or signs of human activity. This was the last time I went to that location in the park. I'm telling you, this park is the devil's home. I am very tired today, so I'll just share something that happened today while I was working. But first, another rule to get to the point of the situation. 15. You may start feeling at one point like entering the forest. Do not listen to that impulse and immediately run back to the main path. I was patrolling with another ranger that we'll call Trisha. We don't know each other well enough to make deep talk, so after a few, there was an awkward silence we couldn't fill anymore. I'm just not made for small talks, you know? The tree line of the woodland was beside us, and suddenly I felt the urge of running straight towards it. But I don't know why. I don't think I was myself, or at least that I was lucid. Trisha noticed me staring at the trees and shook me, so finally the urge stopped. I thanked her and we started chatting again, this time a bit louder. Though when I looked again at the woods, just out of plain morbid curiosity, I saw 2 red orbs that resembled eyes. I'll end it here for today, guys, but before we truly finish with this entry, I would like to add that today, I saw the man in the tan jacket again. This time, however, he did not bother me for another conversation. Instead, he just tipped his hat at me. I smiled and quickly went to the opposite direction, until his figure faded, such as my smile. Stay safe out there, and take care of yourself. Remember not to lose your sanity. Mental health is important too. In the last 2 days, I've seen some people saying a few things regarding my blogs that I would like to discuss. Someone mentioned how selfish I am for keeping this job while not caring enough about safety and searching for something else instead. I don't know how many times I'll have to explain it, but I can't do otherwise. My country has a high percentage of disoccupation, which often means it's not easy to find a job here, especially something that's not underpaid. I do have bills and other stuff to care for. It's not as easy as it seems. I also recently got diagnosed with more health issues, so I need to pay medications and doctors. Second thing, someone else wondered why we don't close either, because of the screaming man. The problem is, rangers don't make the rules here, we just try to follow them, so there's pretty much nothing we can do about it. We do care about people's safety, but it's not our fault that the high ranks think that this place needs to be open. Now, I do have an interesting story from another one of my colleagues that will call Samantha. She said she wanted to help somehow, because people need to know what's actually going on. I never thought something like this could happen, but it did happen for real, and yet, I'm still trying to convince myself it was only a dream. That's what this place does to your mind. Anyway, I was walking past the entrance early one morning, so no one was there yet except for me. I sat down on a small wall waiting for other staff members to arrive, but something started bothering me at one point. You know when you simply don't feel alone, like someone's watching you? I started turning around in all directions, searching for someone or something, but the more I did, the more I became paranoid and agitated. At one point though, I realized where I haven't looked yet. Above me. I took a deep breath. When I looked up, I froze. I just couldn't move. There was a pair of big, red, bloodshot eyes floating in the freaking air. They were attached to nothing. How was that even possible? Now, you may think of me as a chicken, but what truly bothered me wasn't the fact that there were eyeballs and, well, it was gory. No. What disturbed me for real was how they looked at me. I swear I felt whoever owned those eyeballs wanted to hurt me. When adrenaline kicked in, I ran away as fast as I could, locked myself into my car, and decided it was enough for the day. And I went home. I told everyone I was sick. Well, actually, this is not the only case in which someone had claimed of seeing those floating eyes, but I don't think I'm going to ask around about them. I mean, they are just eyes in the end, and there's way more weirder and scarier stuff going on at the park, like talking about creepier stuff that we can't explain. There is one rule we all remember pretty well. 16. Beware of the footprints. If you see human bare feet prints, make sure to get away as quickly as possible. It may happen for us or for the visitors to find strange bare feet footprints. Sometimes they are way too distant from each other to be left by a regular human being. I would dare say that only something with very, very long legs could have left those, which is obviously not an animal, right? They are not a problem itself, but when they appear, someone else goes missing. And it's usually children, so this is why we ask to be informed immediately. We'll just get ready because we know it will happen eventually. If it happens that we find a missing person in these cases, we usually find them dead and placed in what probably wants to resemble a grave, digged in the soil, with what also is probably rudimental tools. It's honestly chilling because it almost seems to mock our costumes, and it's scary that something not human may know us like this. The corpses don't show any wounds or other signs of violence, but there are always missing livers, and to be honest, I don't want to know how that's even real. I'm too curious, but I learned by long time experience, and sometimes it's just better not to ask too many questions. I wish I could talk to my mother about what bothers me, but she has already too many things to worry about, and I don't like to be a burden. She has serious health problems too, so I think you can understand. However, it happened once that somehow we found ourselves talking about my experiences with the paranormal and my little obsession over this stuff. I just can't help it. Dark things just get my attention. It doesn't matter how scary they may be. Plus, it seems like I also attract them too. A lot. I don't recall if I've mentioned it before already, but I have some unnatural stuff going on in my home as well. And it's stuff that you can't obviously hide anymore at one point, so my mother knows about it. After I tried changing the subject, she held my hand, looked at me directly in the eyes, and said I should try praying. A few of you guys suggested that I do that as well, but I kinda find it pointless since I lost my faith in God long ago. I can't ask for help from something that I don't trust. Talking about religion, the next rule has something to do with it. 17. You may happen to encounter a nun, dressed in a white habit. She'll be holding a rosary and chanting in a weird language, so make sure to not disturb her and continue on your way. She's another special visitor, and many rangers encountered, and none of them were able to recognize the language as human, so what we can assume is that she's not. And now comes, obviously, a very important question. How do we know we shouldn't bother this visitor? It was told to us by another old ex-recruit during our first week of work at the park, but I waited for the right moment to share this little story. He said he tried talking with her because he didn't really pay attention to the language, believing it may have been Latin or something else, and so being tricked into thinking she was a normal person. When she turned, though, he couldn't see her eyes because she had none. Instead, she opened her mouth, so much it could have been capable of swallowing a cat. The mouth was full of long, sharp teeth, and she started screaming so loud, he said that he was scared of going deaf. After that, the visitor left, leaving him bleeding from his ears down on his knees. After that, we all made sure not to interrupt whatever that nun was doing. Also, I would like to once again remind you that English is not my first language, so I apologize in advance for any mistakes. I do try my best. I'm also very glad many people like reading my blogs. It truly means a lot to me, because it's like someone is listening to me. It feels just so good to know somebody's truly interested in what I have to say. I will never stop thanking you enough for the support. I find myself on a daily basis surrounded by people that don't actually pay little attention to what I have to say, and it's frustrating, because I want to trust them, but I start doubting them. It doesn't matter how nice they are. I sometimes doubt my own mental sanity too, because I start obsessing over things, overthinking everything, and it's just awful. By the way, I saw him again. He's acting weirder because he's not trying to engage me in conversations anymore. I decided to go up to him when I saw him. He was sitting on a brick wall, like waiting for something. "Hello," I said, trying to look as confident as possible. I was sweating though. "Hello, my dear. I hope you're doing good. I won't bother you today with another one of my silly conversations, so I hope you can have a nice day," he replied with nonchalance, and I felt like there was a bit of pride in his tone, just like a kid would do after having done a big prank. It didn't look good to me at all. I suspiciously raised an eyebrow and thanked him and then laughed. I'm sure he knows something that I don't. I remember David telling me the man in the tan jacket knew everything. But what does everything mean exactly? Maybe he's planning on doing something. But why would he then be waiting in silence? I'm definitely not the one to stop him, I hope. If you should have some ideas, please comment them. I would love to know. Before I end this entry, I wanted to announce that we are going to have special training on Wednesday. We do those from time to time, so I may not be able to upload anything on that day. See you guys tomorrow, and thanks for your patience. Thanks for listening to this series, my friends. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying reading it. There are 4 more parts to this series, and then unfortunately, this series ends. If you're enjoying it, please hit that like button as it helps me out a ton. If you're new, want to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a new series. I upload them almost every single day, and all things natural and supernatural. If you guys made it all the way to the end, the code word for today is 3915. Comment that down below to confuse anybody who didn't make it to the end, and to let me know how many of you do make it to the end. If you guys have a story you would like to submit to hear in a future video, be sure to send that in at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I would love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. It's stories like yours that help keep this show going. If you're not aware, you can download your favorite Swamp Dweller scary stories. on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, and just about every other major podcasting platform out there. I'll see you guys soon with the last 4 parts of this series.